I'm going to read a passage from it. 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight, and have finished the course, and I've kept the faith. We look at politicians from all backgrounds, and we go, where's their spine? Have they kept the faith when we send them to Washington? Far too many of them don't keep the faith when we send them to Washington because they're not reading the Bible. They're not following the Scripture. This Scripture has a lot to offer in terms of our economic problems. In Proverbs 22:7, it says, the debtor is servant to the lender. I talked about $15 trillion in debt. Who holds that debt? A whole lot of people that don't like liberty hold that debt. This isn't going to end well. The Bible predicts it. So, but this isn't the first time our republic has faced crises. You know, the generation, I can tell because you were part of that great generation, faced tyranny of a different sort. My wife's grandfathers fought in those wars and defeated that tyranny. A man by the name of Winston Churchill came out and after the evacuation of Dunkirk gave 3 historic speeches. One of them where he offered the British public nothing but blood, sweat, toil, and tears. That's all he had to offer. The next one, he said, we are going to fight on the beaches. We're going to fight everywhere there is to fight. He prepped his country for the war. And then he gave that beautiful speech about Britain's finest hour. An amazing man. We need leadership like that today. That's the kind. We can't glad hand our way to victory. We can't name drop our way to victory. We can't have the same old politics anymore. What we're facing today is going to be a generational crisis, and we need to prepare. We can live in our gated communities in our beautiful homes, but we can't ignore the fact that 70% of kids in a black community are raised without a father. 50% in the Hispanic community, 30% in the white community, and the numbers are getting worse. This is unbelievable. The number one way to determine the economic prospects of a young man today, and I specifically bring up young men because it's the young men that are being raised without a father, because that is the parent that most often is not in the home. The number one determinant of their economic future of a young man is whether he has a father in the home. The number one determinant of his education is whether a father's in the home. Number one determinant on whether he has interaction with law enforcement is whether a father is in the home. So any politician, any coach, any teacher that says the way out of this is some bill, it's some president, some congressman. No. We have to start where Nehemiah started. When he said, how am I going to rebuild Jerusalem? How am I going to rebuild the institution? And he went out at night and walked around that wall. And he wept tears. He started with himself. And so if we're going to fix this country, it starts with ourselves, owning our own failure. What haven't we done? Have we fought the good fight? And we don't have a lot to offer anybody today. We offer blood, sweat, toil, and tears. And that's the only thing we can offer today. Because frankly, the economy is broken. And I haven't even got into really what the solutions are. But part of any leadership is we need to have a pep talk. You can go, wow, things are pretty bad, and they are. But there is a solution. There is an old path that did not start with Ronald Reagan. It didn't start with Milton Friedman. It didn't start with Adam Smith back in the 1700s. These are the old principles that started at the foundation of the world. But you got to watch how much money you spend. And you can't spend more money than you got. This is an old principle, retold by many, many politicians. Now I'm going to bring us up to modern times and say, what are we going to do about it for real today? Well, in my industry, I'm in the tech industry, and you say, what's that got to do with Lodi? It actually has a lot to do with Lodi. The tech industry would love to build design centers in CA9. They would love to come over here. How come they don't? Because CA9 happens to be in the state of California. And the problems with the tech industry are largely problems with the state of California. And so it's far cheaper to go to Colorado. It's far cheaper to go to Utah. It's far cheaper to go to Louisiana. That's where a lot of these companies are going. In fact, one of the boom industries in California is the how to take your company out of California consultants. So, we could fill up a lot of our empty warehouses. We could fill up a lot of our places if we would get the tech industry to actually, instead of opening up design centers around the world, would come down to Lathrop and Stockton and open up design centers all up and down our thing, because we're not very far from Silicon Valley. Sarbanes-Oxley. That was a bipartisan piece of legislation passed over 10 years ago to deal with the WorldCom and Enron situations. And if you read that piece of legislation, you will see that most of the clauses in there are beautiful. They are wonderful clauses. Everything in there is good, 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 good if you read it. But it has a fundamental and fatal flaw. And the fatal flaw is this, is when you pass rules to stop bad behavior, the only people that follow the rules are the people who would have followed the rules anyway. And so all you've done is burden the good guys, and you haven't solved anything. The way to solve problems is to enforce the laws that are already on the books. You don't need to write a whole bunch more. Sarbanes-Oxley put a $2.5 million burden on companies that go initially public offered. That means that young companies have less access to capital. And you say, how big of a portion of the U.S. economy is John talking about? Why is this a relevant issue? 21% of our economy are young companies that started through the venture capital process. 21% of our economy I'm talking about today. Today, initially public offered companies are down 75% in large measure due to this piece of trash legislation that was offered bipartisanly and passed as a bipartisan. I am not a partisan, I'm not a bipartisan. I'm about what is right and what is wrong, okay? And I don't care if a whole bunch of people in the Republican Party and Democratic Party get together and decide on a really terrible piece of legislation. It's a terrible piece of legislation. It has destroyed 2 million jobs in this country. It has forced companies to go public on foreign exchanges. More companies that started in the U.S. last quarter in Q4 went public on the Hong Kong exchange than went public on NASDAQ. Nobody talks about this. It frustrates me as a businessman. I'm out there and I'm not hearing these people get these kinds of issues being talked about. I could go on and on and on about Sarbanes-Oxley, but we're limited in time, and so I want to move forward. Remember, that was 2 million jobs. Whoa, one last point. California is disproportionately affected by Sarbanes-Oxley because we took in 40% of all the venture capital money came in to the Silicon Valley. And so when we don't take care of that money source, we're also disproportionately affected. And so this is a huge issue for the state of California, and it's a big issue for CA9 because companies aren't naturally expanding less than an hour away from their headquarters, and we need to ask why. Okay. Let's move on to the next thing. I'm going to talk about 10 to 12% of the U.S. economy now. That's energy. Now notice how I'm walking through here, because what we do in business when we try to solve problems, we Pareto a problem. We say, what is the worst problem And we say, how do I deal with that? Then we walk on to the next section of the economy and we say, okay, if I'm going to fix that, what are we going to do to fix that part of the economy? And we walk down step by step, looking at sections of the economy, saying, what's the problem here and how do we fix it? So I started with 21% of our economy that it grew even through this recession. And why aren't we taking care of that? That was Sarbanes-Oxley. The next portion is energy. President Obama already told you his plans for energy. Now, I'm in the silicon business, and this is a silicon crystal. That's what it is. That's what it looks like before we make it into chips and solar panels and all kinds of stuff. And the way this works is we actually take a piece of silicon, we dip it into a molten hot bath of silicon, and we draw that out. And the size of this is proportional to the speed at which we take it out of the silicon bath. And that's why you have it. And when people talk about 4-inch wafers and 6-inch wafers and 8-inch wafers, what they're talking about are the slices, like a bread slicing of this. That's what they mean. This is about 6 inches. Now, you've all been to a glass manufacturer, I hope, or seen one of the boutique things and looked in that oven, and it's cherry red hot. Well, when we build this, it's cherry red hot. Energy is the lifeblood of an economy. It is one of the fundamental underpinning facts of every industry. Is where do you get interested? In farming, you know, I mean, obviously it's fuel, it's processing plants, and all this kind of stuff. In our business, it's the creation of silicon, the processing of it. Every single industry has to do with energy. So if we don't take care of the energy business, our food prices are higher, our gas prices are higher, everything about that we buy and sell is higher. How am I doing on time? Okay. 5 minutes? Well, I got to really hustle then. Bottom line is, California imports 2 out of every 3 electrons we bring into the state in the form of electricity. We directly import a third, and we produce through natural gas a third, except we don't hardly produce any of our own natural gas. We import that. Okay? If we want to have 200,000 jobs in California, solve the energy problem, build power plants. We can't do that in this state because environmentalists have locked up virtually any possibility to produce any realistic power in this state. You cannot build a nuke plant in this state. For crying out loud, it's difficult to even put a solar panel plant in this state. And we want to solve the water problems. A lot of people will say, oh, let's go desalinate and things like that. Well, desalination is a wonderful technology, and it's being used around the world in countries that mind their energy costs. The reason desalination doesn't work in California isn't because of the technology. It's because our electric prices are so high that it would cost over $1,000, $1,500, depending on where you are, per acre foot of water. Almost 10 times higher than it costs Southern California to try to go after the water in Northern California. And that's why. And when they built a desalination plant in Carlsbad, California, the environmentalists went after there hard, sued them 14 times. So when we sue and we sue and we sue, and we demonize our industries, and then we sit there and cry about the situation we're left in. It's terrible. Let's go on a little bit about my bio. You met my wife Jennifer over here at 21 years. I'm a successful businessman. I've grown 3 startups over the last 10 years, created more than $1 billion in market capitalization, and I only write $1 billion. It's actually higher than that, but I figured I would be challenged at some point on that number. The real number is probably 1.2 to 1.3 billion. I got my start in the startups by probably the biggest thing was on the was a product where that uses your finger to do touch stuff. Uses your finger to do touch things on.
iPad. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And on that business is now over $400 million a year. Started at 0. When I started the company, it was a turnaround. I got a call from the CEO, and he told me, you need to go fix my investment. So I left the job I went across town, built that company from 0. Really, really tough situation. Saved all those jobs, all those American jobs. Hundreds of people are now working for that company, and it continues to grow and fight internationally. I don't believe it. I've been overseas more than 60 times. Last night, my feet at this time were standing in Osaka, Japan.
All right. Oh, my goodness.
I was dealing with a Panasonic TV problem. I know something about international trade.
Good.
That's another commonality with Lodi. There is no other candidate in this race that knows international trade anywhere close to what I know international trade. I have met with CEOs and top executives in so many companies, just far too many to categorize here. The next company I went to, we did the world's first successful micromechanical. On this little tiny dot you see here is a beam of silicon that's free floating that produces electrical signals that are highly consistent, among the world's best and only commercially successful version of that. Done in the U.S. The next company I was called over to run, I got a call on the phone and said, John, our company's under threat, we need to change this company. It's called Salego, it's where I work currently. The company was under threat for many reasons. The main reason was Intel had said, we don't need your product anymore. And so 95% of that company's revenue was going to disappear. I must be crazy, I do a lot of crazy things. I left a successful position, went over to join a company that was almost certain of failure. People will think, John, why are you scared to run? I'm not scared to run. I don't care what the Democrat-Republican split is in this county. Because that's not why I fight. I fight the good fight. I don't care if there wasn't a single Republican in this district. I would run because I run on the right principles. So I joined Salego because I believed in the team over there. Those guys were great guys. And so I joined that team. We totally changed that company around. It is now the second fastest growing semiconductor company in the nation. And world, by the way. And so we save those American jobs. I care about this country a lot. We're going to succeed. We're going to fight statists in our classroom. We are going to fight the statists in our boardrooms. We are going to fight the statists everywhere we can find them, and we are going to defeat them. And if it's a battle like abolition that took generations to accomplish, we're going to do that. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what the cost is. I don't care anything about myself in this battle, because it's a battle of ideas. It's a battle about this country. Keep that in mind as we make our decision in this November. It's not just about this election cycle. It's about who are we as Americans. Pouchette, if I say the French name. I bought this book because it is a book attacking Louis Pasteur. A beautiful, beautiful Christian guy who worked and did some of the best work. Just one section of his life would be multiple Nobel Prizes, and he affected so many of our areas of science today you wouldn't believe it. In this book, they mock him because he's a Christian. They mock him because he believes in God. They mock him and mock him and mock him and say he's wrong on all kinds of issues. And they have all kinds of traction over it. So one of the things I encourage us to do is it doesn't matter where we stand or what we do. Yeah, we will encounter opposition, but it doesn't matter. The truth will out. These are the kinds of things I hold close to me to keep my spine titanium.